Every morning, we make an important decision on how we want to be represented that day. Fashion is used as a communicator of our identity, utilizing a multitude of colors, shapes, patterns, and textures to self-express. Clothing can provide us with visual cues on how to identify others, and gives us an inclination into our socio-economic background in terms of power and wealth. And thanks to the increasing influx of fast fashion, clothing has never been more accessible. Fast fashion is described as an approach to the design, creation, and marketing of clothing fashions that emphasizes making fashion trends quickly and cheaply available to consumers. By the early 2000s, fast fashion had revolutionized the fashion industry, with brands such as Zara, Topshop, and H&M at the forefront of replicating catwalk trends and earning monumental profits. The fashion industry is worth £2 trillion globally and brings in $30 billion a year in revenue for the UK. Most brands now release 52 micro-seasons a year, and H&M designs and churns out new garments in less than 2 weeks. This extremely fast-paced manufacturing has created a see now, buy now, wear now environment, where consumers can get what they desire instantly and easily keep up with the latest trends without breaking the bank. Fast fashion is exceedingly cheap, with big high street brands such as Primark selling tops for as little as £1.80.
What fast fashion has done is almost democratized clothing. It's meant that people who perhaps are on a lower income, for example, can buy those fashion trends that initially were only for those on a higher income that could buy from some of these huge brands off the catwalk at several £1,000s in outfits. What it's meant is if you've only got £10 in your wallet to spend, you can go to a shop and get a version of that. So in a way, it has democratized it, but with it has come a cost, both at an environmental level and on an ethical level too. If we look at just the basic model of the fast fashion industry, we have largely clothing produced in third world countries, in places such as Bangladesh. We've had historic human rights abuses in places such as that, where we've got workers on incredibly low wages, but who need that job to provide for their families. The whole model is not a very ethical one, it's consumer driven, but it's also not environmentally friendly as well. Even the manufacturing process, the chemicals used to produce in these factories are harmful for the environment. We then have a carbon footprint, a heavy one, as those garments then come over to us for sale.
The fashion industry produces 20% of global wastewater and around 10% of global carbon emissions. Also, textile dyeing is the second largest polluter of water globally. This is a huge issue. Each week, 11 million garments end up in landfill in the UK, and if not incinerated, clothing can sit there for almost 200 years and will release methane as it decomposes, which is more potent than carbon dioxide. Additionally, the fashion industry is guilty of exploiting garment workers in sweatshops in order to keep prices low. The factories supplying major fast fashion brands employ poverty-stricken women and children who face horrendous working conditions with long hours, abuse, poor wages, and dangerous working environments. These issues are more prominent in India, Thailand, China, and Bangladesh. Further, in July 2020, several allegations were made against Boohoo's garment factory in Leicester, the UK, where workers are experiencing the same conditions.
Coming to Scotland, I did what most young people do at the age of 18, 19. You got a job in retail because that's who hired at minimum wage, but it was a job. And my first few jobs here were in the likes of Logo, River Island, and working there, for me, I couldn't believe you could get a t-shirt for £2.50. That just didn't happen in South Africa. And suddenly there was loads of them, and I don't think I understood fully what that really meant. But I do have one day that stands out, and it was when I was working for one of those high street retailers. and it had been my job to look at the sales prices for the markdowns, and they'd given me this document, and in the one column you had the price of all the garments that it was being sold at. At that time, jeans were about £37 to £47 a pair. But the column next to it had the production cost and how much it actually cost the company to make that garment, and it worked out about £4.70, and they were marking it up to, you know, around £40. Now obviously there's staff overheads and a business to run, and you would expect a markup, but I hadn't realised just how little it cost to make the clothes that I was buying. And a t-shirt, for example, cost 50p, and they were selling them for about £30. So it started sort of asking these questions. You just assume that what you're paying for, that's just how much it costs. And you don't really question where it comes from. But I do now, and I think more and more, a lot of people are doing the same, and they're asking, well, why is that 50p, and where did my t-shirt come from?
Learning these dark secrets of the fashion industry can feel rather daunting, but not all hope is lost. Small changes such as shopping locally, second-hand, or shopping consciously have a significant impact in reducing our fashion footprint. Here are 3 Scottish-based businesses that are in the fight against fast fashion.
Squalor started in 2017, so I'd originally come from a costume background, so I worked sort of freelance as a maker in theatre. I think in theatre that everything is kind of made to last the length of the run, and quite often, you know, you've got a really tight budget and tight time frames, so a lot of things are fairly disposable. They're not the nicest fabrics, and I think as a maker you want to kind of make something that's built to last. The main intention of Squalor is to produce things which will last and that will stand the test of time. I quite like the idea that clothes will sort of almost get better with age, the more they're worn, and it kind of takes on a bit of the personality of the wearer almost. You know, we do get a lot of makers that buy it, so you know, if it's got a bit of paint on it, or it looks a bit sort of worn or a bit rough around the edges, it almost adds to it rather than detracts. So I think that's the sort of main aim, is just longevity.
We opened up our doors in January 2014, and it's just kind of an unusual story because we didn't know what it was going to be or where we were going to go. It literally started with this unit being available, and this unit is just next to the Glad Cafe. Glad Cafe just has a tiny door as a street presence, and this unit has a big window. So the owner of the Glad Cafe just wanted more street presence and more awareness for the cafe. They'd just been open for like a year and a half at this point, and just wanted like something to happen with this unit. So she got some people in. I didn't know her at this point, and got a random phone call from her asking me if I wanted to be on the board in this new adventure that they are starting up. And from there, I've been on the board, and that's 6.5 years ago. Oh, well, we are, well, obviously a very like black and white, obvious, like we are rehoming old clothes. We're giving clothes a second chance, and a third sometimes. And you have the option to come in here and get really good quality products, and you have like a on your doorstep local place to get good stuff instead of having to go on public transport or take your car, go into like a shopping centre, go somewhere. And I think we're just a really, you know, hands-on trying to tackle it, and just trying to do what we can to give like the local community a good option instead of having to go to fast fashion.
Rejean Denim was established in May 2018. It was sort of an idea I'd had in my mind for quite a while, like the seed had been planted from jobs I'd had previously. So I worked in Levi's as a tailor when I lived in London, and then I worked for a vintage company, and we used to, it was, and then when was it when everybody was wearing denim hot pants, you know how like for a good 3 years, every single girl in the UK went around in denim hot pants or turn-up shorts. So I worked for Rocket and we were responsible for selling those. So we would have to cut off the legs off of all these vintage denims, and the legs would just get bagged up and go away to then landfill. I don't actually know where they went, but denim's such like a good hard weighting fabric, and there was so much of it that was going to waste. I thought we could do something better with that. And also one of Rejean's sort of core values is we actively don't contribute to the production of new materials, and I'm quite proud of that, and I like saying that. Yeah, there's some good, nice, sustainable materials out there, but the most sustainable thing is what's already in your wardrobe or what's already in existence, reusing it. So, yeah, you're actively buying a new garment, but it's not from new materials, but it's completely different to what it was in its previous life.
Nothing goes to landfill from our donations. That is one of our main goals. So donations will come in on a daily basis. We get loads of things. We mainly have clothing, jewellery, bags, and we also have records in here. So everything that comes into the shop, we will go through and check if the stuff that will be suitable to sell in this shop, and also if it's in a good condition. Everything that's not suitable for here, I either donate further to other charities.
In terms of tackling the fast fashion industry, it's a bit of a funny one because I'm slightly conflicted. There is currently in the world, there's enough clothes to clothe the next 6 generations. So in terms of sustainability, the fact that we are producing new clothing, there is a conflict there. My way of counteracting that is by producing things which are made of natural fibres, and then so that I think as well, a lot of people don't realise that if you're buying things which are polyester, it is plastic, and every time it gets washed, there's sort of beads of plastic which are going into the water stream. So that's why I always try and stick to sort of natural fibres. And then I think as well, by producing things which will hopefully last a really long time, then hopefully it will cut down on the amount of new pieces which people need to buy. Hopefully things will last for 15 or 20 years, and I think that sort of counterbalances this sort of constant need for something new.
Consumerism and fast fashion are so intertwined, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Fast fashion is just repeatedly churning out new shit and marketing it to you in a way that you need it and you want it, and it's going to make you feel better.
I think there's definitely been a change over the last 10 to 20 years. It's almost expected now that we get a new mobile phone every year when the contract's up. Where did that come from? Because I remember growing up, that definitely wasn't the case, nor was it the case for our parents or even their parents. We want new mobile phones, we want a new summer wardrobe for our holiday. Why do we need to update a summer wardrobe? Where did that come from? So definitely the consumerist way of life has definitely taken over.
I've got pieces in my wardrobe which are, 12, 15 years old that I still wear year after year, and still like looking after them, and that'll always sort of go back to. So I think I probably am quite sentimental about it, and I think that's something which a lot of fast fashion sort of devalues almost. It's not even necessarily the way it's made or anything like that. The fact that it's so cheap. I think people, they'll buy it and not really think about, if they wear it twice and then it goes in the bin. I think that has sort of devalued that. I think if people, it's made it much more disposable, and it's sort of devalued it, not in terms of cost, but in terms of how you kind of view it and how you sort of treasure it.
Well, when you shop at a small business, and it's a one-woman band like me, I do a little every time an order comes through. But yeah, when you're shopping at a small business, you're not supporting billionaires, and you're helping that small business pay their bills, keep going, give them a bit of momentum. They might be a single mother or a single parent, and that might help them get through the month. Or you might tell somebody else about this great new thing you've got, and you're supporting real people.
So I started wearing secondhand clothing on air I think it was around a year ago now, or maybe just a little bit over. I've always been a lover of charity shops anyway. A lot of my clothing comes from there. But I'd had this really good luck to stumble across a new shop that had opened in the east of Scotland in Musselburgh. It was called The Big Pick, and it was a social enterprise, and it was launched to take branded clothing, some of the biggest names that we know, and then sell them by the kilo for much lower prices. So you're talking about £1.50 a garment. And the idea was to divert that clothing, which had initially come from the stores, not sold, and was about to go to landfill. And this project steps in before it reaches that and makes it available to everyone. It was a way to fight clothing going from landfill, but also to help fight clothing poverty, to allow everyone that equal chance to get clothing at a very high quality, but for very low prices. So I did a story on that, but I wanted to support that a little bit more. I believed in that initiative. So for that year, I wore clothing that I'd either bought from Big Pick or had found in charity shops. So I began not really thinking that many people would be interested in that, but I kept going. I did a couple of tweets, not too much, and then at the end of the year, I just put out one tweet saying, did it, you know, it's not that difficult, saved a lot of money. Also look at these projects and look what they're doing, because some of these projects are fantastic. They also give free clothing to children. They organise free school uniforms. You know, they're doing a lot of work within Scotland. I didn't think it would have the response really that it did. I hadn't really thought much when I put out the tweet, and then I woke up the next morning and it had gone a bit crazy. But I had loads of people getting in touch, wanting to know more. They wanted to know where the shop was. They wanted to go to, and then came the media interviews and then the rest. But it was a really positive response.
I think being from the north of Sweden, recycling has always been just what we do. It's something that has been part of life, and you don't even think about it. It's everywhere, and it's just like a natural way of doing it. So it's something that's always been with me, and it's also one of the main reasons why I decided to say yes when I got the phone call about Glad Rags and this adventure. Like my normal day job back in the days was working in theatre and film, which is a very wasteful industry, and I know they're working towards it, but it is. And I feel like for my conscience, being part of this and just diverting everything from landfill and doing everything we can for the planet just made, you know, me feel good at doing something. I could do something practical about it. So it's definitely something I take very seriously.
I think it is human nature that people want to buy new clothes. People will shop regardless of how much information they have about what's going on. So I think offering people an alternative to fast fashion is a good thing. I think there's lots and lots of people that do want to shop ethically, but they don't necessarily know. It's quite difficult to be able to afford some ethical pieces, or even just to sort of know of places which you know where the clothes have come from and where they're made. So I think Love and Squalor sort of offers an alternative. I've tried to make it that it's not too expensive. Obviously I know it is going to be more than a lot of high street shops, but I've tried to kind of cap the prices so that they are achievable. And it just sort of offers pieces which are modern and wearable, but that people know where they're from and where they're made.
Yeah, and we don't all need to consume, we all need to slow down, we all need to consume less, we all need to sort of think about the cost per wear and think, how long is this garment going to last, how long is it going to serve me, am I going to want to wear it next week, am I going to want to wear it next month, am I going to want to wear it next year? If that's a yes, then fair enough. And even if it is fast fashion, if you're still going to wear it and it's a fabric that's going to survive more than 2 washes, is the fabric going to survive 30 washes, that kind of thing, then it's not so bad. But obviously then, you know, how much was the person paid that made it? Can you afford to spend your money with a brand that has their production in the UK or actually pays their workers?
With Fashion Revolution, which started after the Rana Plaza disaster in 2014, I think, which was a was a factory in Bangladesh which collapsed, and it's the biggest industrial disaster ever, and there were over 1,000 lives lost. And it was, the factory was linked to loads of big sort of high street shops. So Fashion Revolution was formed, and it was about calling for transparency in the fashion industry. Because so many brands, they outsource their manufacturing, so they're, in their eyes, they're not really accountable for whatever goes on there. They're just outsourcing it, and they're kind of blind to what's happening and some of the horrible conditions that people are working in. Because essentially, I can shout about the fact that my clothes are handmade, but all clothes are handmade by somebody. And if you're buying a t-shirt for £4, someone's getting exploited there. There's no way that the fabric, the design, the pattern cutting, and the manufacturing, and then shipping it over here, and then there's all the staff in the shop. There's these amazing high street locations that somebody is not kind of getting a fair share of that.
So at almost all junctures of the fast fashion industry, we have challenges. The biggest one, though, is not to just immediately stop that and leave a whole section of people behind. We also, on a level even in the UK, what happens to people who very much rely on the fast fashion industry for their clothing. If you were to pay the true cost of a well-made garment, of a shirt that's, for example, £40, £40 is a lot of money. And if you have a family and kids and you're just trying, just to survive even on a normal minimum wage, that's not achievable, that's not affordable. So there needs to be structures in place on a wider level to support our society as a whole before there can be any significant change to just end fast fashion.
Sustainability now is subjective. There isn't I don't think any one brand or any one maker can claim that their practice is entirely sustainable. There are pros and cons to all sorts of different materials and different manufacturing. For example, we're kind of told that organic cotton is a lot better, but it uses almost twice the amount of water to produce than regular cotton. So you've got to weigh that up, and I think it kind of, you've got to have your own sort of personal values and think, well, what do I want to tackle? I don't think you can tackle every single issue out there, but I think you have to, figure out what's important to you. And
everything has to start with you, though, and with you can, bring it to the community. I think it's like a two-way thing. I think if sustainability and taking care of the planet is something that is not obvious for everyone. People don't know. So being part of a community or learning and getting more into this is a great way of doing it, but it has to start with the individual to get it into the community as well. So I think it's definitely a two-way thing, but it's something that everyone should be aware of, but it has to start somewhere and just filter in. And as a community, obviously, it will be stronger and go further.
I think with regards to the fast fashion industry and with the climate crisis as a whole, it can seem almost a slightly vague concept because it doesn't feel like it's right in front of you. It feels to many of us that it's further off in the future or somewhere else, but not right here. The problem is it is right here and it is in front of us, and time is running out. And I think all the scientists, all the data that's coming in, some of these key figures we've got around us right now, from Greta Thunberg to David Attenborough, what they're saying is true. We need to act now if we are going to save the planet for our future and for future generations. What I would really like to say is that although it feels almost insurmountable, there are changes that individuals can make, and also changes we can make as a community through pressure on those that can really deliver that change to make a significant difference and really help us meet our climate change targets.